Coronavirus. That is what everybody's been talking about lately. Then you go to the supermarket, prepare for a pandemic, and there's no toilet paper, water, or other important products. You panic. But have you stopped for just 1 second to think that this apocalyptic feeling is the same that Venezuelans, Iranians, and other US targets for regime change go through every day because of the US imposed sanctions?
And has the US done anything to mitigate the spread of the coronavirus in those countries? Has it at least pushed pause on the inhumane sanctions that affect defenseless populations? Has it coordinated an effective response to the pandemic with those countries? The answer is absolutely no. In fact, in the middle of this chaos, Washington has imposed even more stringent sanctions that severely obstruct the capacity of those nations to fight the coronavirus. So what can a pandemic like COVID-19 reveal about us? That this country is built on a cult of individualism, but the current situation requires a public effort, not an individual one, a multilateral effort, not a unilateral one, a community effort, not a private one.
Because yes, there are steps you can take to protect yourself and your family, but your best efforts are unlikely to matter if our neighbors, our community, our government don't do their part. You know, there's a world of difference between how our country is responding and how every other country is. And not just countries with progressive government, I mean any country.
China, for example, took big steps when they realized that they had to restructure much of their hospital system to deal with the epidemic. The first thing they decided was, the tests are free, the treatment is free. In contrast, right now, there are huge barriers in the US. You can take the test, get a negative result, and then you'll get a $3,000 hospital bill.
Sure that we work to make it affordable, but we can't control that price because we need the private sector to invest.
In China, the government realized that there were barriers to people seeking care, and so it decided to take over the payments from the people whose health insurance did not cover the costs. The government even built more hospitals to try to meet the needs of the people. Spain temporarily nationalized all its private hospitals, showing that when it comes to healthcare, the response cannot be trusted in private hands. South Korea enabled a drive-through test station for its citizens to take the test for free.
I will probably get them through text messages.
Even right-wing governments like Macron and France have admitted that there are goods and services, like healthcare, that must be outside the laws of the market.
International solidarity can also be seen in times of coronavirus.
China sent planes loaded with medical equipment and doctors to help fight the coronavirus in Italy, Spain, and France. Even blockaded countries show their solidarity. Iran sent masks to China. Cuba has sent doctors and coronavirus treatments to every country that needs it, even allowing a cruise ship with coronavirus-infected patients to dock at a time when other countries try to stop infected people from entering their territories. And remember when Brazil kicked out Cuban doctors? Well, now Bolsonaro's Minister of Health says Cuban doctors will be rehired to battle the coronavirus.
And while the world is largely working together, the US is bombing Iraq amid the coronavirus crisis. Because, yes, there is money for war, while our public health system is totally unprepared and unfunded. Did you know that our CDC budget receives only 1.5% of what the military does?
Furthermore, as suggested by a New York Times report, Washington tried to buy the exclusive rights to a vaccine worked on by German scientists, putting profit over healthcare as ordinary Americans suffer the consequences.
Also, instead of helping other countries to fight this virus, the US is imposing even more crippling sanctions on Venezuela, Iran, Syria, and other countries.
US sanctions have strangled the economy and hurt the healthcare system of countries like Iran and Venezuela, where in theory, food and medical supplies are exempted from sanctions, yet the financial transactions to purchase them are not. Banks and shipping and insurance companies fear they'll be blacklisted by the Trump administration if they do business with those countries, which therefore lack access to essential humanitarian goods. On March 12th, Venezuelan President Nicolás Maduro asked Trump to lift the sanctions imposed on the country in order to purchase coronavirus test kits. The answer came the same day: more sanctions.
He also asked the IMF for an emergency loan to fight the coronavirus, and they rejected the request on the grounds that there's no clarity among its 189 members on who is the legitimate president of Venezuela, if Nicolás Maduro or US-backed self-proclaimed President Juan Guaidó.
Despite the sanctions that are strangling ordinary Venezuelans, the community effort is impressive. Doctors make door-to-door visits, community leaders talk to the members of their community about the preventive measures that they have to take. Social production enterprises, which are part of Venezuelan communist system, are producing masks to distribute for free in their community. But all of this will amount to very little if the sanctions are not lifted.
Is it really the time to make their economy scream because we don't like a given government? The US imposes some sort of sanction on 39 countries, affecting over 1/3 of the world's population. No country can tackle this pandemic alone. And no part of our society can be ignored if we want to effectively face this global challenge. It is time we look out for one another. And it is time to revise the basic precepts of US foreign policy and fight this crisis with international and social solidarity, and not just social distancing, which in itself is not enough.
Call your older relatives who might feel a little lonely. Offer to do the grocery shopping for your elderly neighbor.
Donate to provide relief for the people of Iran. Tell Congress to fund healthcare, not warfare. And of course, demand the Trump administration to lift the deadly sanctions now.
Ayúdenla, que se humana.